When?
Right. You can drag that into the one too.
Oh, yeah? Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Good. Well.
All right. Good morning. It is 9:32 on Thursday, February 18th, 2021. I am Commissioner Smith, also present. Today is Commissioner White, Commissioner Van Peet, Monica Reeves is our Deputy Clerk. I have Brian Stendard and Joe Cox. Did I see Joe? No, I don't have Joe. Kimbra Escueda, Brad Goodsell, Chris Yamamoto, our County Clerk, Zach Wagner, Controller, Samuel Lahi from the Prosecuting Attorney's Office, should have specified Brian, our Assessor, and Brad from the PA's office. And then also in attendance from the public is Stephen Shake. And online, we have Rachel Bocek from the Press Tribune. Rachel, if you do decide to testify, will you please raise your hand? And so at this time, this is it considered a continued hearing from last week, right? Mm-hmm. And where we heard some testimony on the increase for the $2 administration fee increase. And then there was also just some discussion on general staffing needs to increase the level of service that we all would like to provide for the county. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. So continuation from last week. There's been a lot of things that play in between. This was the original plan, was to increase the admin fee $2. Change that up a little bit. New plan, I think, is going to be better. There was a lot of questions as what kind of facility are we going to do? Still a lot of factors at play. So I think the best plan moving forward today would be to fund for additional staff to help reduce wait times at the property tax budget, and 2 additional temp workers that would help us move people around out front, coming and going. Tuesday, we had discussions, Ada County, Kootenai County, assessors, and I met with ITD and the governor's staff. ITD has offered to assist with our backlog. The initial offer that we could opt into was they would take all of our titles. We would get none of the revenue from that. See, that is a great option. But since in that meeting, they offered to assist with the backlog, and we would be made whole. We'll get our money, the money from those titles. So I think that's a good option moving forward. That'll help with the title backlog. They've also offered to assist with renewals. That one we need a little bit more negotiation involved with. The current offer is they would assist with the renewal, the mail-in renewals, and also the internet transaction. But our current administrative fee is $4, and they would only pay us $3. At the time of the negotiation, Ada County and Kootenai County's administration fee was lower than $3. So they would actually, I don't think they would make more than their original admin fee, but they would be kept whole, where we would lose $1 for each one we handled. So wasn't as keen on that. I'd still like to negotiate a little bit more on that to see if we can close that gap a little bit to help us with that. Also, there's a Senate bill out there, 1102, and this would allow ITD or an agent of ITD to handle title transfers and registration work, which may significantly change the outlook of what we do in our office. There's lots of opinions what this is beginning or ending of, but speculate today. It hasn't even had its first hearing. It was just printed, so lots of distance for that bill to go, but it is lingering out there. There can be some effects if it is passed. I think we've established the need for additional help out there. We've all been there, seen it, lived it. had lots of customers contact you about it. Again, here's our wait times. They doubled for November and December of months we compared. Kimber did compare the first part of February, and our transaction times were closer to the 12-minute mark, 12, 13 minutes. So it is improving. Still got a long ways to go to get back to pre-October 13th. You saw this screen before. We did 78 transactions in the first 2 hours we were open, so 39 people an hour. This was this morning. The first hour we did 38 people, and we already had 61 people waiting in line behind those people that we helped. So same production level with our staff. Zach asked me to look at transaction counts last 5 years. So as you can see, we're still increasing. Titles are pretty steady. Big jump between fiscal year 17 and 18. Up here in 19 and 20. I think that's something to do with COVID, is what I would attribute it to. There was April and May that the world kind of slowed. Late March through May. There was still transactions happening, but not near what we've been seeing before. You'll also notice this is the difference in the registrations of that went through the office, whether it be walk-in or mail-in. That's kind of the time frame when ITD's Renew Online push started. And so you'll see the internet transactions went from 48,000 to 75,000, which is it's very well, we're working on that being a streamlined process. They could make it work a little bit easier, but it's improved a lot since they first rolled that out. But you'll see that we're roughly 3,000 transactions short fiscal year 20 versus fiscal year 19, and that's pretty much that titles line. If you look at the total registration line, the bottom line, we still show 1,000 in registration.
Commissioner Van Beek, and that $1,000 is you're getting more people to utilize the internet. Correct?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Van Beek, this is transaction counts. This is not dollars. This is transaction counts.
Correct. And so if you look at between fiscal year 19 and 20, I was looking at the difference that you went down in your input, your foot traffic in your office. So you went down 25,000, but you went up 26, almost 27,000. So there is about 1,000 difference. So even with that going online, the need for, you have to have personnel to run those transactions, whether they come in on foot or whether they come in through the internet.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Van Beek, that's correct. Even with us, with me going out every morning and picking up the internet, bringing it back to the reappraisal office, we're still touching. Our print shop here is handling probably 2/3 to 3/4 of those transactions that I go pick up, and mechanically folding, stuffing those, and mailing them, which is very efficient. But there still is some refinement. But somehow, some way, somebody's touching all of those 264,000 transactions.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Van Beek?
I have another question, Brian, related to your first screen. I did not understand what you said about being made whole. We're going to lose the fee income from the title backlog because ITD is going to take that on. Did you say that that's going to be reimbursed somewhere?
Is this the slide you're talking about?
Yes.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Van Beek, if we opt into having ITD assist with us, the first time they offered to help, we would not receive the $3 for each title that we process. But the meeting with the governor's office, they did change that offer to, they would pay us the $3 for each title that they assisted.
You were successful in negotiating. that as $3, which still leaves $1 shortfall, is what I heard you say on transaction.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Beek, so renewals, we get $4, but a title, our office gets $3 for each of those title transfers. So they would reimburse us $3 for each of the titles that they helped with. The shortfall would be in the renewals. If we opted into the renewal program, having assistance from them, we would only get $3 on that one versus the $4 that we generate.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Van Beek?
I have your last document, Brian, this here. Tell me, when we're looking at that, you have your current admin fees and then proposed fees. And so which line item you've got? An increase for admin fees, 30-day temp fees, duplicate registrations, and inquiries. Those were the line items that we were discussing last time. Where does what you're talking about today fall in that?
So, Madam Chair, Commissioner Beek, the proposal today is we're not going to worry about that.
Okay.
We're going to table that until budget season when we know the size of the building that we're ultimately going to.
Okay, there's a lot of parts in.
Yeah, so now we're stepping away. The only thing we're looking at is what I'm going to ask for today is will you guys authorize us to use property tax funding for 4 people that will be permanent,
Okay.
2 people that are temporary.
Thank you for that clarification.
Can I ask a question of our legal? It's my understanding that we're going to not consider the action item that was posted to the public for the administrative fee, but the way that we have the next item agendized, it just as a meeting. So we can't take any action on that. We can just give direction that we support it, or support or not support, and then it would come back for a decision.
And
This is Sam Lockett for the record.
Sorry. Yeah, I think, and looking to the clerk and staff here, I think that the final decision will probably come later. I think the final decision would be signing the equivalent reopening and adjusting the budget. There you go. Yeah. So we can have the discussion, you can give the direction, but there would need to be a separate agenda item. The final decision comes later is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, Sam. I had to take notes.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Van Beek?
And Brian, I appreciate your clarification. So in your proposal, just a cursory discussion, and maybe you're going to get to that, and if you are, please let me know, but you've identified salary and benefit cost per employee, and then if that's funded, we're halfway through the budget cycle, so potentially an impact for 6 months, and then at the end of that time, that would give us the ability to evaluate long-term needs, and that would be picked up hopefully by the increased identification of what's needed for fees to get that gap closed. Is that right?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Ramby, that's exactly what I'm anticipating.
Okay, thank you.
Getting back to my slide, this next one, Zach had a question on why the renewals weren't quite as high as normal. Here's a perfect example. The deadline was extended. This plate actually expired September 30th of 2020, but they didn't come in, and this was actually an internet renewal. They didn't renew it online until Valentine's Day. It's impressive. I wonder if this was a husband or a wife that renewed this one on Valentine's Day. But nonetheless, so the deadline was extended till January 31st, so these folks drove a couple weeks on an expired registration, but there's no more extension, so I would expect to see more timely renewals.
Aren't they back charged for the area that was expired? Are you saying that you can get away, if you don't get pulled over, you don't have to pay?
On registrations, they have a calendar year that runs, and the first time you register it sets your calendar year. So if you register it in March, your calendar year is March to February. Anytime within that calendar year that you register it, that vehicle, let's say you come in September, it's still going to expire in that February.
Right.
That's its calendar year. So you do get kind of charged, but if you go more than a year past your expiration, they start you all over again. You don't pay any of that back.
Madam Chair.
For the record, that was Kimbra. You're good.
Madam Chair, also to answer your question, the governor did extend the deadline on the renewals through January 31st of 2021. So there was an extension there. This is just a visual representation of how the transaction you'll see that the title's a little dip. There you are, the dark blue. You see them kind of steadily go up each year, but then there's a drop. I believe I would attribute that to the COVID. And then the yellow renewals, those are in-office renewals, whether it be mail-in or walk-in.
Kimbra, I'm going to add in that a lot of our customers are going to other county offices because we haven't met their needs. So you're seeing a drop in that because they've come to our office. They don't want to wait until they go. Like right now, Star is taking all the Milton residents. So you're seeing a lot of the customer base and our revenue is going to other counties because we're not meeting the needs.
And I've heard that from many of my friends. They go to Waihee County, Payette County, even Ada County, a couple people. I'm like, what?
I got a question, Steve Shake.
I think that we should wait until his is done. If you can write your questions down, then we'll come back to you. Sorry, thank you.
Great.
Okay, so here's what we're looking for a cost. Startup position, the salary plus benefits is roughly $48,000 a year. We're looking at half a year. By the time we get this set up and going, be $24,000 to have that. By 4 people would be $96,000 for a full-time position. Temporary, I'm assuming it's going to be $7,500 we'd spend on each of them. I'm hoping that they can work more than, depending on the hours, we pay them up to $7,500 through the rest of the year, depending on, they can only work so many hours. So I'm estimating top end of $7,500 for each of them, so that'd be $15,000. So employees plus the computer equipment, we're estimating $2,500 for each to set up the computer equipment for the county portion. So we'd be looking roughly to get us to the end of the year, $100,000.
One of your slides show what the revenue will be from the state. Is any of that going to come back in revenue?
This potentially not going to generate any additional revenue. We won't be losing as much because we'll be pushing as many people or pushing more people through the system.
Okay. Thank you. Any other?
Just the rest of which is not important.
Okay. Any other public elected officials before we take public testimony? All right, Mr. Shake.
I just had a couple questions for Brian. Back to your total registration numbers, that one right there. I notice 12,000 jump fiscal year 17 to 18, and another big one, 8,000, whatever, but then the 1,000 is that. Are we talking about people, a combination of people going to Marsing or Fayette County or whatever, plus decrease in the title to account for that? I mean, we've been looking at a jump of almost 10,000 a year on average now.
I'm sure, Mr. Shake. So that's a good question. Been asked that along the headlines. That's why this photo's in there. Portion of that is with the deadlines being extended. It was believe that's gonna get caught up.
Falling outside that fiscal year.
Right, catching up, like you said.
Okay. Clerk Yamamoto.
So when we look at the auditor's office, when we look at spending county money, we try to, what is the value? So Brian Kimbrough adding 4 people and the 2 part-time, have you ran some numbers as to what kind of increase we're going to see in numbers as part of transactions?
We're getting to 300 customers a day. If we add 4 more people, we get to about 430 customers a day.
So an addition of 130 additional.
Customers served per day, which doesn't bring us back full to where we were before. We were doing 800 customers a day before Jim. It has forced people to go online. Yeah. And a lot of people aren't happy because there's additional fees that's incurred that way.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Van Beek.
And for clarification, those fees do not go to county government, they go to credit card agencies and things like that. Is that correct, or can you clarify? Okay, thank you.
So, if I, Madam Chair, I think we have 2 issues here. Number 1 is the county growing. Number 2, we have an ITD program that is not good. So, the 22nd, we have the chairman of the board, ITD, and the director, Alberto Gonzalez, and I think the number 2 man coming out at 10 o'clock, right? And hopefully, here's what I think. I think that the board is not getting the whole story as to what's going on with this program. So I invited Bill Mode out. Bill Mode's a friend of mine, so I told him, I think you need to come out and see for yourself. You know, stand behind that computer and watch that circle spin while we're waiting to do a transaction. So I'm hopeful that we can see a little bit of movement, because how long have we been in this program now?
4 months.
And they have done some tweaks. How much does that help?
We've gone from a transaction time of about 15 and a half minutes to 12. Well, the latest is 12 minutes and 12 seconds.
Okay. So you are seeing some improvements. They still are working on it, but we'd like to give it a shove and get things moving a little faster. So, again, we look at value. What's the value of adding these employees? As you know, money spent compared to how much time we improve on the process. The one thing I'll add to that, you know, we are looking at going to a second location, and the real advantage I can see here is that, because there's still going to be long wait times with 4 people. The advantage I can see, you have 4 more people trained up when we do a transition. So I can see a positive aspect.
I have a question. And PA and clerk, everyone, check this math. If it increases, if there's 260 business days in a year, and it increases by 130 transactions, that's 33,800 transactions. And the cost to add those employees was 221,000 or 121,000, right? And so then you divide that by the 33,800 transactions, and that's $3.57 per transaction. So can we not add that fee to cover those costs? I mean, that's simple math, and that seems like a simple fee to add in to cover the cost of doing service.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Van Beek?
And I'm going to respond to that and listening to the clerk and what's happening in the room. So I have a question for Brian first. If we eliminate the new software program that they implemented in October, we strictly look at the folks in the county, do you still have the need for additional personnel, given that we are looking at expanding to a second location? Okay, so the clerk's argument that, okay, so yes, say that loudly on the record.
For the record, Brian said yes.
Okay. So if we look at this from a logistical standpoint of training up, how long does it take to train an employee to work effectively through your process?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Redbeek, I'm going to say 3 months, but, and that's just to get people on the line and confident. But I'm going to let Kimber answer that because she'll have more knowledge.
It's 2 years to get somebody completely versed to where they're working pretty independently.
Okay, and I will have another question, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Van Beek?
Given the current climate, the amount of hostility that's out there at the EMB, are you having difficulty retaining employees?
And you mean, just to clarify, there's hostility coming from the patrons towards the staff?
That is correct.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
thank you.
Yes, not internal. But
Yeah, we've had some turnover quite a bit. We've lost, one leaving Friday. It's going to be her last day.
okay.
She's leaving.
So there is a cost to the county if we lose a tenured employee too. So to alleviate, what I've heard you say is that you have an immediate need to help handle the current crisis that includes growth in the county and the rollout of a program that is less than efficient. In addition to that, the growth in the county by itself would support the addition of 4 full-time and 2 part-time personnel, with the understanding that we're going to try to expand to a second location in Tampa. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Van Beek, that's correct.
Okay. And then, Madam Chair, for the last part of this, you and I think a lot like on the analytical side. So the calculation of the $3.53, 58 cents, thank you. That 30,000 foot view I think is a good look, but I still want more information on what that looks like. And if we're going to increase the cost, if we're going to look at what that does, then I am in favor of that deeper dive during the budget season where we have growth needs and space needs everywhere in the county, that we look at what that is, how we can manage it, and the prorated cost per department. Thank you.
Can my math work?
Madam Chair, so
Yeah, I'm watching.
if the train leaves.
Yes. Do it.
So, as a lawyer, right, so on the math, that's our first point. Second point, when we're talking about the difference, when I'm looking at the fee increase versus the property tax, from a legal perspective, I'm just worried about maintaining the difference between fee and tax.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about increasing that, I want to make sure that it doesn't turn into a tax. And the cleanest way to be able to do that, I think, that I've heard, is to take the average time and the average salary per transaction and how that's changed. And if we show that, we can show that the fee is directly associated with the service being provided. And I don't know what the number would look like, but we could do that kind of
Will
problem.
you back that up and say so what does, say that last sentence again, if you take the service provided now and the service provided before?
Yes.
And then average it?
Yes, well, no. You take the pre-ITD, and we hang this whole thing on ITD, right?
Yeah.
But we take the pre-ITD software change, the time that it took an average employee to do this service, and what that employee's average salary would be. And then we can get an average cost per service. Now we know the time has doubled, but the salary is going to be the same. And so the cost has gone up for just that service. And then you throw in the administrative costs and the cost that there's always going to be some delays, and we don't have robots who can crank out 10 per hour. And then we can be close enough to what the statute says is the actual cost reasonably related, but not exceeding the actual cost.
Can we do that?
Madam Chair.
Hold on.
Madam Chair, so if we do that, we can't, but we're back to how many people are going to be looking at it, moving into the additional facility. There's still too many unknown factors, but from what I was understanding from the board last time I was here, we can do that, yes. but it's going to set us out a lot. It's going to extend the time frame to get people in chairs helping people.
I don't think so, because I still think there needs to be a decision from the board to use property tax to pay for the employees that we need. And then we're coming and we're looking at, here is the fee, which is what I think the prosecuting attorney's office was trying to help us get to, that here's the cost of that service. And then we can have a reasonable fee and we can evaluate what that fee increase looks like. Am I wrong?
No, that's right.
Okay.
I agree with Sam. I would just add on to that. If you raise fees, with the reason being to try to cut back on a 4-hour wait, and I'm just throwing the number out there.
Yeah.
And so you raise the fee and you cut that to 3 hours.
Now, our fee's
It's still
too high.
a really bad look.
Yeah. So that's why if we get you the employees and look at what the cost of that service is, and we use historical data plus the average of the new data, now we have a better fee base, right? So the first step, get the employees, and then the next step, let's figure out that cost.
That's true.
And there's head nodding in the back.
So if I understand you correctly, you are in favor with approving the assessor's request with an evaluation of the fee structure
To follow.
and I agree with that. And I would say this part, I would have probably a more informed consumer, just a citizen coming in the audience, and I feel that our constituents would approve of the board solving the problem. That's what we're here to do, is solve problems. Under Article Code 3801, it says grant the board general powers and duties subject to the restrictions of law. We have 3 lawyers in the room. Under Article Code 31A28, it grants the board the authority to do and perform all the acts which may be necessary to the full discharge of the duties of the chief executive authority of the county government. In this case, the assessor has a need that's immediate, that the citizens are saying, I need help, we need help. 31807 authorizes the board to manage county property. And then your point, 31870 authorizes the board to impose and collect fees for those services provided by the county, which would otherwise be funded. And that statement from the assessor that there are a lot of variables, we don't know what the continued improvements to the software program will do to the wait times. There's a lot of things out there that we don't know. The fact is, if we just look at what we do know there's immediate need for help because of the growth in the county. We do know that, as per the clerk's office, the county has benefited through the COVID-19 process because of their fiscally conservative posture. So do they have the fund balance? I think we do. To meet the immediate needs, which I think it's our citizens to prioritize that. And certainly this gentleman can testify to that in his own words. I think there's an argument that can be made that this is a good use that the board could approve to meet a need in the county.
Commissioner White?
Thank you, Commissioner Van Beek. I mean, these 4, number one, I'm not sure that 4, just me speaking personally, I'm not sure that 4 full-time will be enough, okay? I see that you've made it 5, but you split number 5 in half, and I would think if it's going to be lunches that they're going to cover, or absentees, or people have appointments, or that sort of a thing too. So I'm not sure that, but I want, if we're going to hire people, it's got to be a sustainable funding source. It's not, we just can't, we're not in a panic. It's very urgent, I realize that. But I don't feel any panic we know that the need's there and we're working toward that. But I'd like to hear from the controller, a very sustainable funding source that, because if we take it out of general fund, this and that and everything else, that is not, in my opinion, and I might be confused, and I'll watch for heads nodding or whatever, but that that's not transparent enough for me to raise fees. we have the money, so why are we raising fees? That's how I hear that as just a regular citizen, that sort of thing. So I want to be able, the fees to be raised in a very easy to justify, very transparent. I want it to be that way. And it has to, at that point, then we know exactly, because I don't want to have to come back and say, we really needed, 6 people, but we just, because we just took it this way from that general fund, and now, okay. So I would like to hear from the controller what the sustainable way is, raising fees, if that would be the sustainable way, but we've got to justify that if that's all it is for 4 or 5 or 2 part-time, or full-time. So is it okay, Madam Chair, if we hear from Zach?
Zach, our controller, the controller.
I want to just make the distinction, just like there were 2 pots of CARES money, I think there's 2 things going on here that we need to separate out today. We need immediate help at the DMV. We have a long-term need under a capital improvement plan with a capital improvement fund to know how we're going to embrace the bigger need that's going to be ongoing. And this, as I indicated earlier, and has been confirmed by the assessor, would be rolled into what that look at fees is like during the budget season, so that it does not continue to be a current expense fund. Is that right, Ryan?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Van Beek, that's exactly correct.
Thank you.
Zach.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I have really mixed emotions on this matter. The state implemented a new software program. The state implemented a new system. And I don't think it's fair that Canyon County residents pay either an increased fee or through property tax for what the state has pushed on us. I also feel for Kimbra and Brian and their team. I've been out there personally. I left quickly after I got there. It's a challenging environment. But the state pushed this on us, unfortunately. Now, as far as long-term funding, I think that is an excellent question. What do we do October 1st forward? What does that look like? And motor vehicle is an area where we can charge a reasonable fee to cover the cost of providing the service. The idea is this is not going to be a profit center. We need to determine and establish what is a reasonable fee specific to the service. And that fee is charged to cover only the cost of this specific service. So the burden does not fall on property taxpayers long term. And I think it's important that the office, the function, is as efficient and effective as possible. Even though it is a fee, not a tax, I still think we need to do everything in our power to make sure that is a reasonable, appropriate fee to cover just the cost of the service provided.
Okay. One more comment?
Steve Shake. The people that I've already got signatures from that represent, I think, are pretty much online with what the controller said. For them, number one is the first thing that he mentioned. The state, not unusually as things go, has imposed somewhat of a disability on the county commission. And I agree that, and I don't think as a property owner and a taxpayer to address something right now out of the general fund or property taxes or available funds. But the problem and the reason I brought this forward to Brian in the first place, until the state of Idaho and the Idaho Transportation Department decides what they're going to do about this program, the county, even as good as Brian is really not going to be able to make any kind of assessment of what the future looks like as far as not only money that they need or time or anything else until the crux of this whole problem depends on how fast or what is changed at the Idaho Department of Transportation before any county in the state can tackle this problem, and especially those larger ones like Kootenai and Ada County and Canyon County, because the program that they instituted obviously needs to either be tweaked a whole lot more than has been in the 4 months, or in talking to Representatives Cheney and Yamamoto, they need to can it, and maybe look at somewhere, and that would be scary because that's retraining everybody in the world about it. But in other words, the state needs to do something to fix it so that it works like it did in October. And until we get to that point, how could we really assess what fee or whatever is going to present that value in the future? How are we going to know how many people we're going to need at a second location? How are you going, until that time is established of how many people can go through? How can we really assess, a long-term need and how much a fee should be or how much money it's going to take to provide it? That's where the taxpayers that I'm representing, and they realize this is not a DMV problem, it's not a county commissioner problem, as usual. That's my opinion. It's a state problem.
So, Rachel, since you're still online, I hope you caught that and quote that in the newspaper. In essence of time, we are 15 minutes over. So, I would like to indicate that I would support, I understand what everyone has brought to the table today, but you do need additional employees to meet the needs of Canyon County, whether it's the state's fault or not. We still have an obligation to serve our constituents, and your staff deserves that as well. And so I support you working with the controller and the clerk to figure out how we can come back with reopening and adjusting the budget to support that immediate need.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Van Beek?
And in looking at the numbers that Brian presented, which I think are conservative, that 48,000 falls right with the average income of a Canyon County worker, 115,000 against our budget of 100 million is a tenth of 1%, if I looked at that correctly. So when we evaluated the need 2 years ago for elections equipment, for instance, that decision for $3.5 million was funded because there was an express need. This is not $3.5 million. This is $115,000. To meet the needs of citizens standing in line, I'm in support, and I believe that the assessor should be able to negotiate how to get that need met immediately with the goal of long-term sustainable funding.
And I just want to clarify that the total cost for the exhibit Brian provided is $121, not $115. Yeah.
I can recalculate, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner White?
Okay, so are we talking taking money out of the general fund or whatever, or are we talking a fee raise, or are we talking both? Because there's both of this conversation just floating around in here.
General fund right now.
Just the general fund, taking it out of that to fund employees.
Yeah.
Comment on that?
I think it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify that because I wasn't sure.
Yeah, right now we don't have enough information for the fee increase. So, Commissioner Van Beek.
1%, it did not change.
Okay, perfect. Are we good with providing that direction?
Yes, you need a motion?
Nope.
Okay.
Because it's just a meeting.
Madam Chair, in the interest of facilitating a final decision somewhere down the road, I think, and Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, if the controller and clerk's office are willing to run the numbers for the board to show what that would look like and what the budget resolution would look like, there could be additional discussion and a final decision at an action item to consider a reopening budget for this purpose. It sounded like that was the
Generally, we prefer to reopen the budget at the end of the fiscal year. There are some costs, there's some time involved, there's publication. Prefer to let that kind of run its course fiscal year and take care of it all at once together. We could certainly provide some numbers. So here's what we anticipate need to happen at some point during this fiscal year. Here's how it would play out. Reopen the budget, increase it by this much. And towards the end of the fiscal year.
And the positions could be funded sooner than that.
Yes.
Okay, so we could fund, and then is there need to be a formal decision to fund those positions?
The formal action needs to be published. It will be a formal adjustment to the budget. The decision on if we want to do that now, or are we comfortable with waiting until later towards the end of the fiscal year, so we can take care of all of the budget adjustments at that time together.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Van Beek?
And I do support Zach's position of waiting with one budget adjustment. That's historically what we've done. When you provide feedback to the board, because of the unique position we've been put in financially with the federal funding that's forward, I would like to have the amount of the county's fund balance and what percent that represents. That will help. Also, I think we're in a good financial position. That's what I've heard consistently. Have the numbers like the reserve for the landfill enterprise fund. That would be great. So two distinct numbers there, and what percentage of the budget that represents would be great. Thank you.
I think we're just gonna finish. We're out of time. Sorry, thank you. Okay, any additional work on this today?
So
Sam?
a meeting to consider with an action item to consider adding 4 employees to the assessor's office. I think if we can get that agendized, we can have those numbers, and then you have an action item to make it happen. And the decision about how to allocate funding, an auditing decision that can happen later.
Perfect. Monica's all over that, and then we will come back for a formal action item. Thank you. Okay, so it is 4:19, and that concludes this meeting.
4:19.
10:19. 4:19. That means I'm done for the day. It's 4:19, I'm out. 10:19. Oh, no, now it's 10:20. So thank you.
That's the same answer I got. 419.